All right, guys. Our next guest is one of the most iconic coaches in MMA, from being behind the scrap pack and fighters such as the Diaz brothers, Gilbert Melendez, Jake Shields. It is an honor to welcome the great Cesar Gracie back to Submission Radio. Cesar, thank you so much for finding some time to join us, man. It really means a lot to me.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you guys for having me. I'm over here just if I'm looking off in the distance a little bit, it's just because I'm in California driving back up north from Nate's fight. It was down south, and I'm going back home, which is up north. So I'm taking the I-5 back to my area.
Yeah, man, it looks beautiful. And speaking of the fight, dude, what a performance, man. Nate Diaz coming out there and putting on a show. What is your reaction?
I was really impressed. Nate really impressed me. Masvidal really impressed me too. I really liked what he was doing. His fight was great. He had heavy hands. He looked like a true boxer out there. And Masvidal's been, people don't know this about Masvidal, but he has an extensive boxing pedigree from back in the day. And then he got into the whole, MMA thing and everything. But he was really a guy that was more known for his hands back in the day. So I knew this was going to be an absolute war of a fight. And I think that's what happened. And I think the crowd really loved it. Speaking with Nate, he seemed very relaxed before the fight. We spoke in the ring also, and right afterwards, he goes, I was just, because boxing to him feels like a hard sparring section, and that's all it was. He said I don't know, he took some heavy shots for sure, and he gave heavy shots back, and both guys had a great performance, I thought.
Yeah, man. It was actually like a bit of a battle back and forth. How did you have it scored, by the way, in the end? A lot of people had a few different scores. Some people thought maybe it was a draw. How did you have it scored?
I thought Nate won the fight. I did. His volume was just ridiculous. He hurt Masvidal a couple times. I know that, it depends how you score a fight, really. I could see people that like Masvidal. Boxing was getting in the difference.
You there, Caesar? So you cut
Yeah, I'm
out for
here.
a second. Awesome.
Okay.
Sorry, do you mind just saying that last bit again? You just sort of cut off of so yeah, how did you have it scored, man?
No worries. I had Nate up by a few rounds, to be honest with you. He was up a few rounds. He outpointed him, is the way it was. For it being a boxing fight, I had Nate outpointing the guys. So I had him. It's hard to tell because, at the time I wasn't scoring the fight. I didn't sit down and score every round. Just the gist of it, I thought Nate won the fight, in general. So I definitely thought Nate was going to get the decision.
Now, it's exciting times for Nate, man. He mentioned how, there's some boxing matches out there for him that he's excited about. Also spoke about the UFC. Realistically, what do you think is next for Nate? Do you see a boxing match, or do you think it's back to MMA?
I think it could be either one, but I really think if it's going to be MMA, I think it would be in the UFC, to be honest with you. And I think the UFC would have to come in with some really high numbers to get him back over there to do a fight.
Mm-hmm.
And he deserves it. He's such a draw. I can tell you this fight, even though Nate was very relaxed, I was a little nervous because I thought it was a must win. I mean, if we're going to be honest, Nate's performance with the Jake Paul guy wasn't the greatest performance. I felt like Nate wasn't really taking things seriously enough in that fight, and he didn't get in the kind of shape he was for this fight.
Yeah, what was happening in the training camp for that Jake Paul fight? Was it just the fact that maybe things just weren't taken as seriously? Like, what was the big difference between these two camps, in your opinion?
I mean, there's always injuries, there's always stuff like that. It's part of the game. It's the guy that doesn't get injured that does better, obviously. So Nate had some injuries,
Mm-hmm.
but also because the higher weight classes and everything, Jake Paul's a big guy, is on his supplements and everything. And it's just, I don't think Nate does very well in the higher weight classes either, because I think what happens is he starts to get a little bit lethargic, you know. We got to remember that part of his incredible cardio and toughness is what wins fights a lot of the times. And in the higher weight classes, I think it's harder for him.
Mm. Just speaking of boxing quickly before we get off it for Nate, who are a
Mhm.
couple of names that you'd like to see him fight in boxing next? I remember you mentioned, there were a lot of people in boxing that wanted to fight him. What would be a fight that you'd love to see for him next if it was boxing?
Well, at this stage, it'd have to be a big name is the thing, and
Mm.
you know, Nate is what, he's 38, 39 years old or
Yeah.
something like that. But the funny thing is, he told me he feels great though. He says, Caesar, I feel like I've got years in front of me. He's feeling. If you saw his fight, he never. I mean, he pushed through the 10 rounds, and he thinks he can fight just about anybody right now. He has just this. He's in great shape right now. It's amazing. But I mean, I'm not. I don't want to name names because I don't know. That's not my job.
Mm.
That's what I think Nate's gonna look around. He's got an instinct for that type of stuff. Um, there's a lot of tough guys out there. There's a lot of big name guys, and I think definitely Nate's gonna go after some big name people.
Mm. So there's this theory going around, Caesar, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Obviously, Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor didn't pan out yet. Conor had to take some time away. And now it looks like they might be rebooking the fight. With Nate mentioning that he wants to go back to the UFC, do you see a scenario where he takes Michael Chandler's spot and they do the trilogy fight with Conor McGregor as the big return to the UFC for Nate Diaz?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's outside of my realm what the UFC is thinking.
Mm.
So it's almost I'm speculating. But me as a in my position, I think that would be great. I think a trilogy probably makes a lot of sense for both of those guys. Uh, Chandler and McGregor is a good fight too, but I mean, just the history of Nate and McGregor would be it'd be the bigger fan fight if they had a trilogy. In my opinion, that's what I'm thinking.
Mm. How do you think that third one would go at this point in their careers? Obviously, Nate looking really good just yesterday, fighting Jorge.
Yeah, I think like I said, Nate doesn't look like he's really lost any steps lately. Um, with McGregor, he's been out of it for a while and he hasn't had a win in a long time. I would have to favor Nate on that one. His toughness and his he's been in the game, and it's not good when guys come out and stay out that long of the game. It's hard for him, and I think whether McGregor fights Chandler or someone else, I think he's going to have a lot of trouble,
Mm.
getting back to his peak performance.
It's interesting as well because Nate wants that UFC title. I wonder, who do you think would be the guy for him to fight? Would it be Islam Makhachev at lightweight, or would you want to see a rematch with Leon Edwards at welterweight?
Um, I think maybe Nate had mentioned something about Edwards, if I'm not
Mm.
mistaken, in one
Yeah.
of the interviews. So, when Nate was going to fight Edwards the first time, he had a couple of choices, and Nate always picks the hardest choice. There was a name, there were two names given. There was one name that was the easier choice, and Nate said, "Who's the toughest guy? Who's the higher rank guy?" And it was Edwards, and he picked him. So,
Yeah.
Nate's always going to go for the toughest fight. That's how his mind works. It is what he is.
All right, guys, before we continue in the interview, I have a sponsorship announcement that you're going to want to hear, and that is with our friends from Manscaped, who are offering you 20% off and free shipping right now with the code word submission. Listen to me. I know Submission Radio has you sorted when it comes to your MMA coverage, but these guys have you sorted when it comes to your ball coverage. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is an absolute game changer. It comes with two interchangeable skin-safe blade heads, so you can choose between a precise trim or a smooth finish. And did I mention that it is waterproof? Yes, you can trim in the shower and avoid making a mess everywhere. It's perfect for those of us who appreciate efficiency. And let's talk about the beard hedger just quickly. Whether you're going for a neat stubble or a full-on lumberjack look, this trimmer has you covered. It features a titanium-coated stainless steel T-blade and 20 length options. You can achieve any style you want with just a twist of the zoom wheel. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra always ensures that you're looking your best below the waist, while the beard hedger takes care of everything else. 20% off and code word submission now, plus free shipping. Back to the program. Do you remember who the other name was?
If I'm not mistaken, it was that I think it was the Brazilian guy, Luca, or whatever his name is, the guy that supposed gonna that Nick is supposed to
Oh,
fight or
Vicente
something. But
Luque?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that if memory serves me correctly, I know that was a couple years back, but it was him was the other name.
Yeah, gotcha.
That,
Gotcha.
and I actually thought Nate should fight him at the time. Um, Edwards is a more elusive fighter. I could see him doing where Luca at the time was going to bring a fight. And I thought Nate would just out tough him.
Mm,
But both really good guys, both great guys. And Edwards was ranked higher, and Nate just wants to higher rank people.
mm. How do you think that rematch would go? He had a nice moment against Edwards towards the end of the fight. That kind of stole a lot of fans' perception of the fight. I guess that was the big moment
Yeah,
where he landed that shot, and a lot of people remember that when they think of the fight rather than the other rounds.
yeah. Edwards is at the top of his game for sure. And the thing with Nate is he's just always has the tools to beat you. Edwards landed some absolutely devastating shots on Nate in that fight.
Mm,
I saw kicks, I saw punches, and he won some of the rounds. But if we're going to be perfectly honest, if there was another round left, I think all the fans realized that Edwards was about to get knocked out in that fight. So, it just depends who's going to have their moments, really.
mm.
Nate, if you go in there to fight him, if you want to point fight him, yeah, you could maybe beat him. But if you really go to knock him out, that's when you can get in trouble. So it depends on what Edwards we would see that night.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, it would be like a huge fight, right? And for Leon
Yeah.
Edwards, it's a big payday, and it makes a lot of sense from that perspective as well. Let's go to Nick, because you mentioned Vicente Luque. We're excited, man. Nick Diaz making his return to the UFC. Got to ask, so what led to this return? I know last time you came on with us, you told us that Nick wasn't in great health and kind of had to take that fight with Robbie Lawler. What led to this fight coming
Yeah.
together now?
I'm really not involved in that fight. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. That wasn't my idea. It wouldn't have fight I would have had, like if I was advising Nick, I wouldn't have advised him to do that fight.
Mm,
It's in Abu Dhabi. I would advise to go fight overseas at this point. Um, Especially Luca is a very tough guy. Nick is a tough guy, but it just it doesn't make that much sense for me where Nick is at in his career, and I don't know. There's just it's not the fight I would have made, and I'm not. I don't even know what's going on with that fight, to be honest with you. I speak to Nick. I spoke to Nick today a little bit, and yeah, I don't have any plans for that fight, to be honest with you. I don't even know. I don't know what's going to happen with that one, to be honest with
well,
you, at all.
is that actually the fight? Is that the fight that's going to happen, or is there a chance it could be someone else and maybe a bit of a switch happens?
Um, I don't know. I don't. It's yeah. Obviously there's a lot of stuff that can't be. I just don't. I don't know what's going to happen with that.
Gotcha.
I'm not involved. I know that a lot of Nick's training partners are involved, and so I'm not the guy to ask.
Gotcha. Do you think there's a chance the fight doesn't happen, or do you think that likely we'll definitely see this return on this date for Nick? Does he seem excited for it?
Uh, yeah, I haven't been part of his training for this one.
Mm,
Um, I'm just not. We talk every day, and I don't know what's going to happen with that. To be honest with you, I don't. It's a toss up. What's going to happen? And like again, I think that our camp in general, we haven't been as involved like we are with other stuff, and so
yeah.
I don't know what Nick is doing. I know he's lost a lot of weight and everything, but I don't really see him training with fighters, and I don't know what's going on with that fight. So
Mm.
I don't.
You guys are
You know.
usually pretty close. Is there a reason why you're not working
Yeah.
so close together for this fight? Is it just because he's in a different geographical location, or is there a reason why?
Um, I think there was like I mean, Nick in general, after the Anderson Silva thing, there was a lot of changes. It was like, I think what happened was when the commission took him out for years for the weed ban thing, whatever they were doing, it's just, I think that kind of threw him for a loop. And he kind of, he wasn't in the gym because there was no reason for being in the gym. So suddenly he wasn't hanging out with people from the gym. And, it's tough to be a guy like Nick Diaz. He's such an icon of the sport. He's so, so famous and everybody wants a piece of him. And it's, so it's not that we're not close. I mean, I love Nick, obviously. We talk every day, to be honest with you. It's just, I do things a certain way and, Nate does things and all the guys do it. And he's just not really part of the training with the guys right now. Like normally right now he'd be training with Jake Shields. He'd be training with his brother. He would have been sparring. Nick was not there last night, for example, for Nate's fight. No bad blood or anything whatsoever. It's just I think that the people that are holding on to Nick right now in Texas want to hold on to Nick, and so I hope he's I hope they take good care of him. That's all I can say.
Yeah, okay, wow. Well, from the conversations that you do have with him, how is his health? Because I know last time he wasn't in great health. This time around, are we looking at least at a healthier Nick Diaz as he potentially enters the octagon again?
I think when we're talking about health, when we're talking about like obviously the last time he had some weight issues
Mm.
and
There was the
he'd
neck
come off of
issue.
what well, yeah, he had to, yeah. And for people that don't know about the neck issue, Nick went into that fight and he had two of his discs needed to be replaced. So he
Mm.
had that surgery where they go in and they take two discs out because they had sunk down and major neck issues. It stopped his training. He wasn't doing the triathlons. He wasn't doing all the training he could do. And we didn't know what was wrong with him. He had these crazy headaches and everything. We took for the MRI and they said, oh my God, we can't believe this guy might not be able to walk
Oh
if he
my
doesn't get
God.
this operation.
Yeah.
So he went to Cedar Sinai. They did a wonderful neck surgery. I know his neck now is 100%, which is good. And I know his weight is good. So, I mean, Nick always stays kind of in a shape. He's just an incredible athlete, that guy. But, but that's pretty much all I can tell you about it. I mean, that I know about it.
Mm. Well, dude, I agree with you. I think that Vicente Luque, as much of as a legend as Vicente Luque, it just doesn't really make sense. And I want to see Nick
Yeah.
come back in the best circumstances possible. So hopefully, hopefully this works out. But Cesar, in other news, man, congratulations on Nate. He's done an incredible job. As we wrap up, what do you think the UFC should offer Nate if he was to return back to the organization? Because we remember he was under that really long contract for a while where he was being underpaid. He wasn't really being utilized like he should have been. At one
Yeah.
point, he wasn't even on the poster. Now he's probably one of the bigger names that they could have in the organization at a time where the organization doesn't really even have many big names. What kind of offer do you think the UFC needs to make to Nate here to make this thing legitimate?
Uh, you know, Millions and millions of dollars, whatever they're paying their highest people. There's just Nate is such an icon of the sport. He's fought and deserves the things he's gotten. He had to get everything the hard way. Um, he brings star power with him. The event last night was sold out. It was, and it was all Nate Diaz over there, and no one would have gone to that show without Nate Diaz. So I don't know. It was so huge. His fan base is
It
so
was sold out.
incredible.
It was completely sold out. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was incredible. You're talking, this stadium. It looked like a UFC thing in there,
Mm.
and the fans just win or lose, they absolutely love that guy. They see what kind of a person he is, kind of fighter he is. So the UFC would be smart to give him whatever he needs. Is what I'm thinking.
Mm.
And he should be definitely one of their very top earners on there because he's always going to bring a great fight, especially in the kind of shape he's in right now.
Mm. Good. It's exciting times. Everybody out there, make sure to follow Cesar and the team at Cesar Gracie, BJJ, on social media. Dude, congratulations. You have made an incredible impact on the sport, and you continue making an impact on the sport. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for MMA.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see what's next.
Much appreciated to you guys. Have a great day. Thanks for having me on, guys.